Should be going now. I'll keep my chat up as well. Today's topic is going to be all about quizzes. So we've got new quizzes and old quizzes, and I'll kind of talk about the difference between the two of those. So for starters, I am going to share my screen. So right now I am in my Canvas homepage, and in order to add a quiz to my Canvas course, I need to go to my modules, and it's the same process that we talked about last week with assignments and discussions. So we'll pick a module. I'm just going to do this one. And when you hit the plus button, you're of course going to get this like little area where you can select a drop-down menu. And I'm going to select a quiz. And then when it says, if I don't have one that I want on here, I'm going to do create quiz, and I'm going to type in the name of my quiz, what I want this to be. And these can also be surveys, but they're always going to call it a quiz. So with that said, you're going to notice that we have two different options for what to select here for our quizzes. The first one is going to be new quizzes, and then the second one is going to be classic quizzes. So I'll kind of talk about classic quizzes first, and that'll be the first one I'll show you. But classic quizzes is like the original quizzing tool built into Canvas. So if you've used like Microsoft Forms before, it's very similar to that. You're able to add questions with different question types, and basically you can create all of your assessments in Canvas. And I've always told people that if you're not super comfortable with technology, this is a really great place to start for getting students into it and starting to use it in your instruction. Because classic quizzes is just really slick. You know, you create a quiz assignment for them. It's just another type of assignment, really. They click on it, they hit take the quiz, and then they go through the questions, and it will grade a lot of the regular question types for you. So like multiple choice, true, false. You can even set grading for like fill in the blank and things like that. There's a bunch of different options. Really, you only have to grade the essay questions, which there's also an option for that. So this can really speed up your grading. I know when I was in the classroom a million years ago, it feels like, but every single one of my assessments I had, as I'm sure many of you do, multiple different question types. A lot of them I would start off with true, false, multiple choice, and then short answer. And then eventually I was a science teacher, so I always used to like to wrap it up with a couple essay questions just to give students that like higher level type of instruction. But even though I did that, I could still put all my assessments in Canvas because it would grade the whole like 3/4 of the quiz for me. So if I ever get cut and put back in the classroom, that's my plan. I'm throwing all my assessments on Canvas. But it'll grade a lot of those for you. It has a lot of different question types. Now, new quizzes, on the other hand, so classic quizzes, basic quizzing tool, I'll show you that first. New quizzes, on the other hand, is kind of like a completely new interface. Some people like it, some people aren't the biggest fans of it. Personally, I actually kind of like it. The big thing that I like about new quizzes is that it has it has a lot more question types that you can pick from, which you'll see once we actually build those. So new quizzes is kind of like supposed to be new and improved version of the quizzing tool, and it gives you more options for question types. It still grades things for you, just like classic quizzes. And if I think the original plan was they said that new quizzes was going to replace classic quizzes, although I was told that that's not the plan anymore. They're just going to eventually at some point stop supporting classic quizzes, but it'll still be there and still available. So really, you're pretty safe right now of just picking which is your favorite type and sticking with that. So if you like classic quizzes better, you're safe to use that. Same thing with new quizzes. I will tell you this, if for whatever reason, years down the road, Canvas is like, all right, we're going to scrap classic quizzes, they do have a tool to migrate classic quizzes over to new quizzes. So again, like I said, if you want to use classic quizzes to begin with, totally fine. You'll just have to transfer them over someday if that happens. But right now, like I said, Canvas is saying they don't have plans to get rid of classic quizzes. They're kind of going to serve as two separate tools. So does anyone have any questions about the two types of quizzes, what might happen to them, anything like that before we get started and how to build in them? Okay, so with that, let's get started. So classic quizzes, we're going to start with classic quizzes and how to build a classic quiz with the original quizzing tool. This one's a little easier to use up front. So we'll use add item, and then that pops up my quiz down here. And you can tell that it's unpublished, and this little rocket ship indicates that it is a quiz. I don't know why they use a rocket ship for quizzes, but whenever you see that, that's what that means. So I'm going to click on this. And then just like everything else, I have to hit edit to set my settings. So I'll notice that one of the great things about Canvas, I know I always tout this, is that no matter what you're building, it's very similar. So we'll notice that this is the exact same as assignments, pages, and discussions. Same tools. So you can have video instructions, you can do whatever you want up here using information from last week's training. We scroll down here and we got some options. So for starters, there's different quiz types. So we've got a graded quiz. We've got a practice quiz. So that's kind of like a quiz that students can take that isn't graded, or it's graded, but it doesn't count in the grade book, if that makes sense. So, and then there's surveys. So you've got a graded survey and then an ungraded survey. I use ungraded surveys for like checks for understanding during some of my trainings. So I'll have teachers pop in and do an ungraded survey just to like, you know, see what it is that they're doing. And it doesn't assign any points. They just answer the questions and submit it. So I'm going to leave for today's purposes us on the graded quiz option because it really doesn't change any of these settings much. We come down here, we've got some options. So you can set a time limit on your quiz if you want to. So, and it goes in minutes. So you can set a time limit if you'd like. This is one I pretty much always select. It's shuffle answers. And what that does is as students are going through the quiz, it's going to shuffle up your answers that you've put in so that, you know, if a student's like peeking over at someone else's computer or something or iPad, you know, it won't be the same. There are certain like restrictions you can use. I don't know why we would ever use any of these here in K-12, so I probably won't cover those. There's down here, same as the assignments and discussions, there's the due date and the available date. So this available from date is the date that you can begin taking the quiz, and until is the date that you are no longer able to take it. Speed and efficiency, rocket ships. It's true, they are fast and efficient. Okay, I'm going to set a due date for, let's say, tomorrow. I'm going to have it cut off. I wouldn't actually do this, but I'm going to have it cut off the 29th. Oh, I completely skipped this part up here. So this is an area where you can decide what your students see when they're done with the quiz. So it says, let students see their quiz responses. So what you can do is you can set this, but if you want them to see the correct answers to the quiz, you would just click this, or you would click this, and then you get some options. So only once after each attempt. So if you click that option, it's going to give them like the correct answers and see their responses and everything right after they're done taking the exam. Otherwise, let's see students see the correct answers. You can do show correct answers at and then hide correct answers at dates. So let's say you want them to take the quiz on Thursday, or something like that. But you don't want them to see the correct answers or anything until like a day later, or maybe 2 days later. If you teach block classes, that's not a bad idea, because then, you know, you can't have students screenshotting the correct answers and sending it to their buddies. Not that that would happen, as I'm sure we all know, but you can set this so that it lets students see the correct answers at a certain date. So if it's a block class, it might be a good idea to set it like 2 days after you're done. But yeah, you just set the date like that, and then you can hide the correct answers again at a certain date after that. So if you only want them to be able to see the correct answers for like a day, you can do that. Otherwise, if you don't set these dates, it'll just show them their correct answers right away, and you don't have to deal with it. So, you know, you have freedom over what you can do with this particular section. It allows you to set when they see the answers to the quiz. Any questions about any of these quiz settings before we go into how to add questions? Okay. Now you'll notice that one thing different than an assignment is that you don't have like a points area. And the reason they do that is because your points are auto-populated when you put in the questions. So I'm going to do questions. So if I come up here to where it says details, we'll notice that the next step over is questions. And from here, I can actually start creating questions. So let's do a new question. Plus new question right here. Once I do that, very similar box to a lot of other things, but I can give the question like a title. So sometimes I'll do like question 1. I can set what type of question it is. And so it could be true and false, fill in the blank. You're all teachers. You probably can figure out what these mean just from the title, so I won't bore you with going through all of them. But one option that you might not know is text no questions. So like on a quiz, if you wanted to like provide an instruction area that they see or something like that, you could use the text no question area and just type in some general info. Otherwise, the rest of these are actual question types. I'm just going to leave it on multiple choice for now. And then over here, you can set the points. So let's say I want this to be a 2-point type of deal. I can set that up here in the corner. I come down here and I type in the answer. So what is the, let's do 4th planet from the sun. So I type in my question, and then I can come down here and I can put in some answers. We'll do Earth, Mars, Mercury, just to trigger some astronomy nerds like me, Pluto, you know, because it's not really a planet anymore. But I got my 4 answers here. Obviously, Mars is going to be my correct answer. So to indicate the correct answer, if I hover over it, I just have to select the arrow next to it to indicate that that is the correct answer to the question. So again, I hover over it and I select the arrow, and it allows me to indicate which one is the correct answer. In addition, what I can do is there's these there's these little boxes right below the answers. And you can actually click on the little boxes, and then what that does is at the end of the quiz, when a student's reviewing their answers, they'll get a little message from you based on what they answered. So for example, I could put in here like, great job if they get it right. We hit done, and so then that's the comment if they choose that answer. Pluto. Are you serious? Obviously, I would never actually put that in a quiz, but it's there, so you can pick that option. So we'll do update question. So once I'm done and I've got my feedback in there and I've got my answers, and you don't have to do these feedback boxes if you don't want to. They're just there. You can come down here, and this is the most important part. I always mess this up. is hitting the update question button. You got to do that to save changes on the question. So I'll hit update question. It's 2 points. And now I want to create another one. So I'll do plus new question. And like I said, we've got like essay questions. You can type out a question here, and then when students take the quiz, it gives them the option to answer the question. Why should Tyler Shaban get a raise? Okay, we'll hit update question. So now I got an essay. Oh, I should rename it. Question 2, and I'll make it like say 3 points. Update question. Okay, there is the true and false. You set up true and false the same way. So you put in your answers and then you select the arrow to indicate whether or not it's true and false. There's numerical answer. I'm not a math person, so I'm not 100% sure what all this means, but you can do numerical questions with that. There is formula question, similar idea. So, you know, you can build a question using a formula. Again, I'm not a math person, so I don't understand exactly how that works. There is multiple answers. So if there's one that has more than one correct answer, you can click this, type in the question, start putting in answers here. And then they only give me 2 to default. So what I can do is if I hover over here, I can hit add another answer. I'm going to click another one. And now I've got 4 options. And I can also do that in multiple choice if I want more than 4. But I click add another answer, type in the answers, and then in this case, I select an arrow for each one that's correct, since it's multiple correct answers. True, false, maybe, kind of. Okay. And I'm going to make this one question 3, and I'll leave it at 1 point. We'll say that's the answer. So I'll hit update question. And now what I can do is I can go back to details and I can hit save and publish. And now I have a completed quiz. So if I'm a student, I'd come in here. Oh, I see this is worth 6 points and there's no time limit and it's due on this date and available until this date. Take the quiz. So I'll take it. And then I list my questions out. Pretty easy peasy. So let's do Mars because he's awesome. And then we'll do kind of intro. I hit submit quiz at the bottom, and then because of my settings, it tells me what I got correct and what I didn't. But I can turn this off if I want to. So that's classic quizzes. It's pretty easy. And then, of course, you can always duplicate quizzes. You can copy these to other courses. So once you build your assessments in Canvas, you really can keep them forever and just transfer them to your different classes as you need them. So it's pretty nice. Any questions about classic quizzes before I show you the other version? Okay. So with that said, let's go create a new quiz. And it'll kind of give you an idea of some of it. So classic quizzes, pretty simple, pretty basic. A lot of the settings kind of explain themselves. New quizzes is a little different, but I will show you how that goes. Some people really like this one better though, because of the amount of different things you can do. So I will hit plus, we'll select a quiz, create a quiz, and this time I'm going to keep it on new quizzes. And we're going to do Science 7 new quiz. And we'll hit add item. The new quizzes, you can tell the difference because the classic quizzes have the spaceship not filled in, and this one has the spaceship filled in. So if I go to new quiz, I will see my settings very similar to like what I had before. So the thing that I don't particularly care about, and it actually tripped me up for a sec because I forgot, if you click on it, you don't actually have to hit the edit button. It's the only kind of page that you don't have to do that for. But the settings are pretty well the same. So you can set your points ahead of time. Otherwise, you just set your points as you build your questions. You can choose to display your points as a certain type. You can do letter grade, GPA, complete, incomplete, however you want to do it. And then, of course, we've got our due date and our available and until dates. The difference between one difference between new quizzes and classic quizzes is you can't really change the type of quiz it is. So like the classic quizzes, you can do an ungraded survey, things like that. This one, you really don't get that option. So once I have all my settings done, I'll just make the due date tomorrow. You can hit this build button down here in the bottom right corner, and build brings you to the new external new quizzes area. So I come in here, and at the very top, it's telling me that I can put in some instructions. So I'm going to click this little pencil icon on the side to edit it. And then I get this same box that I would get anywhere else in Canvas. So I'm just going to put, take this quiz. Obviously, you could put better ones in there than that, but I'll hit done. And then that gives me instructions for my actual quiz. What I can then do is in new quizzes, it kind of builds downward like this. So I'll do plus, this little plus button. And then from here, I'm given a bunch of different options. Very similar to some of the older one, or to the other one, but with a couple of differences. Like there's this numeric one. Can put that in there. I'm actually going to start with the big question. I'm going to just start with the basic one. So like plus, and then you can do like multiple choice, just like before. So I click multiple choice, and then from here, you know, you put in your question, you put in your possible answers, and then you select whichever one's the correct answer. So it's very similar to classic quizzes in that regard. To delete a question or an answer or something, you can hit this little trash can to the side, and then this replicates the comments that they get when they answer the question. If I want to add more than one answer, we've got the plus answer button down here. But what's interesting is below the other options that I get. So number one, if it's like a math question or something like that, you can actually show an on-screen calculator. So this is good if you're using like if you want your students to have a calculator right on the screen as they're taking their quiz, you can select that by question. So that's a nice choice. You can vary the points by answer. So if they answer like a sort of good answer, you can give them reduced points, but they won't get a total 0, if that makes sense. So you can assign different points based on the answer that it gets. So if I select that option, it will give me the opportunity to adjust these points per answer. So maybe that could work for you. There's aligned to outcomes, which comes in a later training, and then item banking, which we'll also cover in a later training. But for now, that's how you can create a question. So I'm just going to hit done. Oh my gosh. Let's just delete that. Okay. Some other types is I don't remember what hotspot is. This question type is not accessible to users requiring keyboard only access or screen readers. Maybe avoid that one. I'll stick to the ones I know. You can experiment with these different types. Let's do like, here's the essay one. So you get a few different options on here too. So you can show the word count. The question title goes up here. Here's the question. You can show the word count. You can set a word limit. So if you don't want that one kid writing you 400-page essay for something that should just, you know, be a short paragraph or something like that, you can set a word limit. You can show word count. You can do spell check on there, which is nice. And then again, the calculator. You probably always want to leave the rich content editor option on so that they have access to all of their tools that you would normally get when you're typing in Canvas. And then of course down here you can set your points. So I encourage you with both of these quiz types, just kind of go through and experiment with these question types. You won't break anything if you mess it up. You just hit the little trash can and delete it. So that's why I was kind of experimenting. But if we go up to the top, there's some other options that I wanted to show you that kind of set new quizzes apart. So first of all, in our settings, we have a lot more options for things that we can do. So time limit, access code, you can set it so it only shows one question at a time, which is nice. You can shuffle answers and questions, so you can really shuffle up the order of the quiz. You can turn on the calculator for the whole thing if you want. Allow clearing selection and multiple choice. Allow multiple attempts. And then this is the area where you can restrict the student view. So you can determine what they're going to see at the end of the quiz. So you've got that option. Then in the reports area up here at the top, you get some really cool item analysis. And I wish that I had students that I could experiment with this on and show you what these look like. But what this does is in the reports is it gives you a in-depth view of what students what questions your students missed most often. So it gives you a really good snapshot view of what some of that stuff looks like. So, and that's in the quiz and item analysis. And if you hit generate report, it creates, but there's not data in here. Google.com, new quiz item analysis Canvas. See if I can get a screenshot of this here. So like this is what one would look like. So you can see that it has the questions broken down, the highest score broken down. You can see how many students answered the questions correctly. And it gives you, and you can even break it down by individual students, I should mention. So this Canvas employee apparently likes Star Wars. But you can see, you know, what they put as their answers and what percentage. So you can see that by individual question and individual student. So this is one of the big reasons why people like new quizzes better than old quizzes, just because of these reports. So like I said, play around with those in an actual class. You can break it down into so much different stuff. I wish I had fake students to test it on, but unfortunately I don't. So, but you know, once you use it, you can check it out. You can break it down by student, quiz, question type, all that good stuff. I really like this tool. If I were in the classroom, probably one way I could use this is like as an exit ticket, you know, give them a quick couple multiple choice questions about today's lesson to answer before they leave or something like that. Like maybe give it to them 5 minutes before or something. And then they can answer that quick little assessment. It'll grade it for me if I do all multiple choice. This is just a quick check for understanding. And then I can very quickly go into the reports and see how my students did on it. So it's very nice. There's also the moderate area. So in moderate, you can check who submitted what, how long they took on it, and all that stuff. So really, it's pretty slick. So when I'm all done building in here, what I can do is I can hit this return button up in the top right corner, and it brings me back to my module. So that's it really for the two different quiz types. You'll kind of have to play around with both and see if, you know, which one you prefer. Some people, it's not they don't care about the reports, just maybe they don't need them. And they like the classic quizzes because they like the way it's set up. Some people that really get in depth in new quizzes and they, you know, they get all their reports, they set things up. So, I mean, it runs really slick and you get more information out of it. But the downside is I feel it's easier to build a quiz in classic quizzes, but the downside is you don't get as many cool settings and reports as you do in new quizzes. So, final questions.
Hey, Tyler.
Yes.
Oh, okay, you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I have a question. It's probably not related to quizzes, so if you want me to hold on, I can. If somebody else has a question about this.
Yeah, let's hold on to that because if no one else has questions about quizzes, we can they can take off. So, does anyone have any questions about quizzes? If not, you know how to find me, and you can reach out with additional questions later on, and I will be posting this recording tomorrow. So I'm going to stop the recording. Have a great evening. Stop recording.